Welcome back to like Josh and I are here again. Sorry, it's just us, not a smarter pharmacist. No offense. Hey, no,
fair enough.
I'm kidding. We're doing another Catalyst catch up. We've got a few topics to talk about. Something we're bringing, something quarterly-ish. We'll kind of take the news, what we've seen, what we've heard, and kind of try to just kind of talk about it, rap about it a little bit. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. The first thing that is like the hot topic, the thing that's hot off the press, is the FTC report about PBMs. 2 bullets I'm going to fire off reading the report. I did read it.
You read all 70 pages of
I
it?
did no. No.
Okay.
I read the FTC summary so far.
Okay.
I'm like a quarter of the way through the whole thing. Like I just got my hands on it yesterday. But the summary bullets, 2 of the summary bullets, unfair contract terms. We all know that. And then the second one, the efforts to limit low cost. Something that's like I really don't remember too much about. Like it's not something that's always like a topic of conversation. It's like the efforts to limit low cost competitors. Interesting on the like drug utilization side. I think we all kind of know it. They kind of said it. The one thing I was going to say about it was as far as like how to use it, if you're an independent pharmacy, you have to like share this with one on your own pages, scream it from the rooftops, but like send it to every media outlet you can in your own local region. One, like just to try to get like awareness around any of the conversations you've already had with patients around like, hey, your insurance is charging X, we're going to charge Y because of that. So just try to use it and use it to your advantage where you can. Like that's my like gist of that.
Yeah. I mean, my worry a little bit about that is like, remember a few years ago with the whole net neutrality deal where a lot of industry people cared deeply about it.
Uh-huh.
And they had like this FTC comments thing where you could go log in and say how important net neutrality was to you. And that like the last mile of the internet is still like the last bastion of like completely protected zone. Like you can't treat traffic differently. And I guess around that time, one of my my local congressmen was walking through the neighborhood trying to get reelected and knocking on doors. And I happened to recognize him. And I also recognized that he was heavily in favor of not supporting net neutrality. So I asked him about it and he was like, he didn't know anything about it. And this is a guy ostensibly who's writing the law. And like, I'm worried like with the FTC stuff here that it comes into a collective sigh of like, okay.
Yeah.
Right. Like this is a really long policy statement. And does your grandma care? How do you make them care? Right.
Yeah.
Like that part's is kind of like an elephant-sized problem without a really good solution to make the average person that's not an independent pharmacist really care about it.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. It's something to think. Yeah. Something to think through. Like I look at this and like, obviously all of the like state associations and all of the like advocacy groups are going to grab it and use it, lobby it with it. You should 100%. Just trying to think through. I almost what I said kind of leads into what you said. How do you like even educate a patient base or a demographic or a population of just like your consumers that visit your store to try to get them to care?
And to be a little bit snarky, I really want to see what the CVS response and PCMA's response is, being like, this is just not true.
Yeah, it's honestly, to sum up the PCMA response, I believe it was something like that, not based in facts, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Although they cited data. They cited a lot of Adam Fine stuff too. I think it's like 80 different sites in that thing. So he feels like, I bet he feels great.
Yeah.
So
true.
All right. Well, that's that topic. All right. So
hold on. Can I throw a Doomsday Scenario in with the FTC stuff?
Oh, okay.
I know. It's wild.
Let's do it.
So I've been following all the weird stuff that the Supreme Court's been doing lately, right? And so like they overturn the court's deference to Chevron, right? Basically saying that essentially the regulatory bodies aren't able to enforce the things unless specifically enumerated by Congress. Right?
Okay. Yep.
So if I'm like CVS or PCMA or somebody like that, why wouldn't you not sue the FTC and say like, you can't do anything about this because Congress has said nothing about you being able to regulate PBMs? And they haven't. Like, this may be one of those things where like the FTC could try to do something, and in our current state, they could sue them and completely invalidate the FTC's ability to do this at all.
all the more reason to like keep your foot on the gas legislatively.
Yeah, no question.
Right? Yeah.
Like it's one of those like you got to be careful because that's not like 5 years ago I would have said that was completely bonkers, right?
Yeah.
No way it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, 2 weeks ago it happened, and now you're like, okay, so if you rely on the FTC to be able to break up this group, I don't necessarily think that's going to be a clear slam dunk anymore. I don't know that the FTC could break up PBMs if they wanted to without getting sued and without a pretty good chance of losing. I mean, my law degree came from Google, but it'd be interesting to see what other lawyers have to say about that of like, what's the chance of something like that succeeding and making it even more important for state legislatures and Congress to push kind of a bipartisan legislation to help protect that you can't leave the FTC as your only line of defense here.
I see. That makes sense. I didn't know what Chevron was either till like 2 weeks ago. Like I know the oil and gas company, but I was very much like
it's named after the oil and gas company.
I know, but that's what it was about. Like I was just so like, what is this? Why do I care? I get it.
You care
I do
because
care.
we have a massive regulatory state in this country that now maybe has no power.
Yeah. It reminds me of a little bit of the 340B. There was a while where the Office of Pharmacy Affairs, I don't know if anybody knows 340B who listens or watches this, where they really were setting like enumerating rules about like, this is how the program works. And because it's almost kind of in the vein of that case, because Congress didn't spell out in law, that's what they can do. I think their rules basically got shot down.
Yeah.
I think manufacturers were the ones doing them, or I can't remember who that was doing that. So I don't know. More to come, more to digest. It's a lengthy read.
Yeah, it's a beef. I read like the first 2 pages before I fell asleep.
Yeah. So I'm sure much smarter people will read that than me and then tell me what I should care about. I hope.
Yeah, I hope that we get a bunch of lawyers telling us that my hot take and deepest, darkest worry is that I'm just not that good at reading the law.
I hope so. Sounds like it. Last thing, the other thing that's interesting, a few weeks ago, the Walgreens, I don't know if you call it an announcement, but he was it was an interview he was doing and basically said like 25% of our stores aren't profitable at all in some way. And they're really evaluating closing, could be up to that number, which is roughly 2,000 pharmacies. Like I think you've already talked about Walgreens before on this podcast in some way. Wanted to feel like, is this start of something? Is this it was Rite Aid the canary and Walgreens is a little bit the next step in that?
I think
or what
it's
do you
hard
think?
to say because there's 2 big drivers there. I think the first is I think it helps recognize when it's not just independent pharmacies saying, hey, things are really bad out there, right? When you have what most people would, if you asked any American, name 3 pharmacies, Walgreens is probably in that list, right? You probably get into Walgreens, Walmart, CVS,
all day.
right? And so if there's a possibility that Walgreens doesn't exist and they can say that they don't exist because of poor reimbursement, it just helps validate all the things that independents have been screaming for the last decade. So I think in that vein, it helps a lot. And the other, Walgreens has had like a decade of really, really poor management. So it's hard to say, was the whole environment driven by the fact that Walgreens can't get reimbursements or the fact that the management at Walgreens can't make decent decisions for their businesses? I think you probably find there's column A, column B, and both are true. But I think, short term, it really helps the case for independents saying, look, if you don't own the PBM, the reimbursements are so bad you can't stay in business.
Right.
Even Walgreens can't do it, and they've got 8,000 stores.
Right. Yep. Yeah. We're seeing just in my little suburbia closures too. Like just in of course I had 2 CVS's on the corner of me. I had a standalone CVS, had a Target CVS like right there. They actually consolidated to the Target one, which was weird for me, but it did.
I mean, would you rather go to a CVS or to a Target?
Target's better.
All day.
Not gonna lie. But
yeah, I had a CVS close by me as well. It was maybe the worst run pharmacy I've ever seen. So I don't think anybody was shocked at that, but
yeah, I would say like, I'm with you as far as like people who listen to this, like this is another tool to go use to have conversations around. Like, I know everybody's beating that drum. It just as another drum for you to go beat. Like, hey, look, fairly time, like weirdly right behind, like right before the FTC announcement or kind of like findings came out. You have that right before that too.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, and I know NCPA is running with this because I saw it in one of their announcements, is like really going back and actually I think University of Pittsburgh is kind of spearheading this right now as well, looking that if you took the number of pharmacies that Walgreens was talking about closing and you removed them from the map, what does that do to pharmacy deserts and access to pharmacy? You know, part of the deal now is the people didn't care as much because you could say 90% of the country lived within 10 miles of a pharmacy. All right, that's fine. What if you back out 2,000 of them? That suddenly becomes less true. And they're obviously closing pharmacies in rural areas, you know, underperforming areas. The places that need those pharmacies the most aren't getting them, right? So again, it bolsters your argument for, at the very least, you have to protect the last remaining pharmacy in those communities. And the way you do that is making sure that they're reimbursed fairly. Yeah,
they're bolstered properly. Yeah. Yep, 100%. Yeah, I was wondering, I was wondering if anybody, who did that work then? Who'd you say did that work?
The one I saw was University of Pittsburgh, and I think they were partnered with NCPA.
Okay.
Pittsburgh had a nice interactive map that I saw with like kind of pharmacy closures over the decades.
Okay.
Now, I might call out Pittsburgh for saying they did something really cool, and they did something slightly silly, which was they took the backouts, but they didn't put the map to where it was removing dots of closures and adding openings. Dots of openings.
Gotcha.
Right. So like you can say 10,000 pharmacies closed over the last decade.
Yeah,
all right.
And you'll see in the graph like, visually where they landed. It's map plotted. Is that what it is? Got it.
And, you know, like 9,900 and something open. So like it was a slightly misleading map, but the idea was right. If you pulled 2,000 out that aren't going to be backfilled, what do those communities look like? And there's a number of communities that have no pharmacies.
Yeah, there's going to be some fresh pharmacy deserts being created out of that.
Yeah, I mean, and some of it's like if you take them out of a zip code, like if you took them out of my zip code, for example, that's 0.2 of a square mile. Like I've got 5 zip codes within rock throwing distance of my house. You put that in Wyoming and you take out a zip code and it's like half the state.
It's different. Yeah.
You know, so like a zip code's not equal to another zip code, and there's some big deserts that are about to be created.
And even in Texas too. Like you think, like we always think probably too much Dallas, Houston, Austin. Like you go down the valley in West Texas and parts of North. There's a lot. There's a lot being created there too. So okay, cool. So hopefully those aren't too somber takes or whatever.
You got any good news
on your list? We've really bummed everyone out here. Here's one. I don't know if it's good news, but it's an update I'd like to get your opinion on. I've already talked to a lot of people about it. It's DSCSA. So Drug Supply Chain and Security Act, right? Is that how it works? Looks like that got postponed.
Kind of.
Ish, right?
Yeah.
Give me your rundown of what you interpret it as, and then what pharmacies you think should do.
Sure.
Could do.
So it didn't necessarily get postponed at all.
Okay.
They issued an exemption for pharmacies of a certain size or smaller that didn't necessarily have to be prepared to comply with the full extent of the law in November. That said, a lot of pharmacies are still going to meet that requirement of having to do it. And the reality is, at some point, whether they add another exemption or another pushback, it's going to happen, right? So we're going to continue to be prepared for it. We're still pushing forward with integrations for all the DSCSA providers that we've worked with. We're still working to make sure that Pioneer can handle serialization and all of those other things, knowing that our goal is to make it so that you can comply with DSCSA without thinking about having to comply with the DSCSA. And at the same time, I think the exemption was a recognition that a lot of people in that supply chain are still wildly unprepared to support what the law actually says it should do. Like there's exemptions for certain products, like veterinary products, compounding excipients, things like that, that if it doesn't have a 2D barcode, how are you going to scan it? How do you account for that in the supply chain? There's still a lot of unanswered questions, and I think that's where the exemption carve out was for like a pharmacy of 5 people may not be able to handle those types of carve outs appropriately. And so carved out, delayed, yes. Push back on the law, no. You're technically still supposed to be complying with the DSCSA today.
Got it. And then the waiver or delay, however characterizing, I'll say, I guess waiver is like limited to what? Like limited to you have a temporary waiver in some way for 20, is it 25? As I heard the number 25. I read the number 25.
Yeah, somebody's going to correct me on this.
I slept since then. Yeah. Sure.
It's 25 pharmacists and technicians right? Combination. So, to have a combination of 25 pharmacists and
sizable
technicians in a pharmacy is total, though, not necessarily at any one time.
Yeah.
It's not a small, slow pharmacy, but you can exceed 25 employees relatively quickly.
Yeah, you got some part-time folks.
And the thing that was unclear to me was like, let's say you own 3 pharmacies, each one with 9 employees.
Do I get 75? Or do I get 25?
That's right. So like, there's a lot of pharmacies out there, or a lot of pharmacy owners that have 3 or 4 locations with that, say an NCP average of 12 employees.
Yeah, you run up on that pretty quick.
Yeah, you may not be exempt in that place, whether if it's exemption by company or exemption by a specific location.
Yeah, each pharmacy.
I was unclear about that. So
yeah, it doesn't seem like it's worded.
Yeah, it was
crisp on that portion of it, I guess I would say.
Yeah.
So your health systems check, you guys are complying. Sorry, most of the time, most of all your health systems are doing it. And then potentially pharmacies 3, 4, or 5 or more that probably have 25 pharmacists and technicians are.
Yep. And dude, we've been to some small
consult your counsel, do what's best for your business kind of message there.
The moral of this episode is consult your lawyer.
Yeah, it really is. I feel like that's true. That's what our topic. Yeah.
But even like 25 employees in terms of pharmacists and techs, like I've been to some small towns with pharmacies that are doing 1,000, 1,200 scripts a day.
Oh, easy. Yeah.
And they've easily got 25 employees.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's certainly not going to be the majority of people that are exempt.
Yeah. I don't know. We're pushing through with our integration. Like we're going to have to be ready by then. That's for sure. So from our perspective, we're working like we got to get everybody ready.
Yeah. We have a number of customers that are well over that too. We're pushing forward to be prepared well ahead of November for full compliance.
Okay, cool. All right. That was the other one. We had our user conference, roughly 1,000 people there. That was great. Fantastic. A lot of energy there. We had kind of 2 going at the same time. We had a little bit of an LTC branch. We had an LTC branch, and then we had obviously the Pioneer tracks as well. Anything you gleamed? I know you spoke. Anything you gleamed or want to share from the user conference itself? Plus, we just got through one of the major wholesaler shows already. I'm about to do the other 2.
Yep. I think the thing that I always take away from going to and coming back from Connect, like going to, you're like, it's at the end of the your calendar or your cycle year. It's a beating getting everything set up and prepped, and like I had almost nothing to do with that, and it was still stressful. So the 10 to 15 red cell employees that spend months of their time getting it ready, it's just like a massive beating going into it. And then you get there and you see hundreds of people who are amazing pharmacists and care about their communities, get excited about what you've built, what's coming. learning about how to use the system better. So like I'm from Texas, so I always kind of equate Connect to being like a vacation Bible school. Like you go, you get like all jazzed up for the week, and then you come back, and like the hope is that you go back to your home or your community and that excitement follows through. And I know like we always get a lift for, at least a month afterward where you're like, dude, I'm so pumped to build the things I've been building, but now with a new purpose, because I saw 800 people's actual faces that are going to use it. So that's always my biggest takeaway. But a lot of engaged people, a lot of people asking questions. I definitely got a lot of questions about people looking for ways to make money that weren't third-party related.
Gotcha.
Right. So more questions about
the scope of a PBM.
Yeah, more questions about cash pricing, more questions about compounding, selling different products. And that was true even at McKesson, right? You saw a lot of vendors out there like, I saw on LinkedIn the other day, somebody opened a pharmacy that had their pharmacy on one side and a FedEx shipping store on the other. And you're starting to see people look at like, I want to be able to manage the things I can control more effectively and not worry as much about the third-party payments that they seemingly can't control right now.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There's always you're right. It's a great place. Like obviously the user conference, we have so many people work really hard on it. Thank you, everyone. I know I've said that 100 times to everybody, but two, a great like place for an affirmation of what you're working on that's right. And then also like what you're working on, maybe that may not be, and be like, oh, cool, we need to pivot and go do this or something like that. You always get like the nice thing about independent pharmacy and all of our customers is I don't know, even in our portals, we ask for feedback. We ask for feedback all the time. And so, so it's good. It's a good place to get a lot of it. Some affirmations of what we're doing right. Some things that's like, new things we didn't know about to go address, which is really cool. I agree in the sense that there does seem to be some renewed focus. I saw it more at McKesson too, but I was so involved in like the event itself, I couldn't come up for air as much. Around like, how do I optimize, maximize, or find new streams into non-PBM sources of revenue, whether it's services, whether it's like, I saw someone talking about like a whole like approach to IVs and IV infusion. Obviously state by state, that's different as far as like what has to be prescribed under a doctor or whatever, but like, so affirmed, I guess. Yeah.
The other thing, and this may be a plug for why somebody might want to be a speaker at Connect, like we have people who actually use the system teach people who are in the audience. And I found this to be true in multiple years where I've either taught a class or like this one where I kind of did the welcome speech. Even if people don't agree with what you said on stage, afterward they're going to find you and ask you a bunch of questions.
Yeah, for sure.
So like if you're a speaker at Connect and you told somebody, hey, I'm going to go do inventory like X, Y, and Z, it's just the nature of the world. You're going to have some people come up and be like, well, I do it this way, or what you're doing doesn't make sense. You should do it this way. Yeah. And it generated a lot of good communications and conversations about, well, maybe you should think about this. And that's nice part where like, I can design a feature to work the way I wanted it to work. And then 7,000 people are going to go use it in a totally different way and come up with a bunch of really cool ways to use something that wasn't ever intended to be done that way.
Yeah. And Mitch brought like a costume. So.
Oh yeah. Well, so he used to be a wizard. Now he was
like a big dog. He was it was animal based.
That's right.
I don't remember much, but like I do remember that got a lot of, so if anyone knows Mitch Archer,
there may or may not be some incriminating photos of Mitch dressed up around.
Like come for the education, stay for seeing the show that is Inventory with Mitch.
Yeah.
So that was good. The last thing I was going to bring up, that was pretty much it. I had the FTC. Let me make sure I got through my list. Walgreens, trade shows, a little more positive note there. We're going up now. We're going up now. We started kind of weird. Now we're going the NCPA core program starts in August.
Yeah.
Scott talked about it. Scott Pace talked about it. here's this lineup, and it's a year long, by the way. It's not just like here's a webinar, but it's a year long worth of training. Nobody's sponsoring us to talk about this. I just thought it was super cool because of the lineup. You have Scott Sykes. So Scotty Sykes going to be here. Kelly Babcock and Terry Norvell. Dave Windland, Scott Pace, Travis Wolf. You got all these smart people teaching you something new.
A bunch of nobodies in the world of independent pharmacy.
Right.
Just
like, how do you not? Yeah,
I know.
Totally just name dropping to like associate greatness, I guess. I don't know.
It's like you just name the list of all the people that are smarter than us, and you're like, all right, that's cool.
Yeah. No, the starts in August. I don't know if this will air by 100% by the time they all kick off, but like, I know it's a year-long program. I think they're going to meet every week talking about like all the core strategies. I can't remember it all, but it's leadership, it's operations, it's marketing. So you name it, it's there. It's also like accounting, finance, P&L stuff. So it's a great program that they're doing through NCPA. We'll put the link in the show notes for that. But that's my quick wrap up of our break since last time.
Yeah.
Do you have anything? Did you bring anything?
No, I just came.
I brought the list.
Just came prepared
to
pontificate on your list.
It's good. Here's the last thing we're gonna have to leave with.
Okay.
I remember, Kevin. Don't worry. Prescribables.
Okay.
All right. What are you bringing us that you're reading, watching, listening to, or doing that you think everybody else could do?
The fun part is I think right now we're both reading and
I've already beat that book to death. But go ahead.
The same book, right?
Go ahead.
So you got me onto it. It's called Unreasonable Hospitality.
Yep.
I've read it once. I'm about halfway through reading it again, and all in the same like week and a half span. Really fantastic book about, what it takes to get people not only to satisfy your customers, which I think is the ultimate goal, but Will Guidara approaches it in a way that like you make the people you serve happy and excited by building a happy, excited group of people that you work with. Like nothing in there is like, it's like a regular business book. Nothing in there is like, oh man, this is a Nobel Prize kind of new concept. It's just a really approachable way to get to it. And like, I really, really like that.
Yeah. It's such a, I'll say this, I'll add to it. Like I've been beating that book to death on the podcast itself.
Our people are going to get real tired of
I know,
us soon.
I know. Last time I promise. But like if making customers really happy in a way where your team just does it because it's ingrained in your culture and system is like your thing to do. And I feel like it's so applicable to our customer base because they totally differentiate on service and accessibility, things like that. So like, it's such a good book that applies to taking a restaurant and making it really great through culture and a system as pharmacy does in itself, like with people who care about providing a really good experience.
Well, and it kind of goes inherently with the things that we've told customers a long time, right? When we'd go visit their store and they're like, hey, I've tried to implement a MedSync program 3 or 4 times and every time it just gets out of hand and fails. And then when you go back and look at it, you realize that only one person at the store cared about it. Right. So the owner was like, hey, this is a great idea. We should do it. The data backs it up. It helps with inventory. It helps with all this stuff. But the people who actually had to run it on a day-to-day basis didn't understand why they were doing it. They didn't see any direct benefits for themselves or to their patients. And so the principles in that book were like, you get the people who are doing it to care and be excited about it and to champion it. And that's how you be successful. Like one person can't be successful. They all have to be. Interesting. I didn't realize this until I read the book because of you. I've been watching The Bear on FX.
Yeah.
Great show about restaurants.
Yeah.
This season is, if you haven't watched it, it's worth watching after you watch the first 2. If you jumped into season 3 on its own, you'll have no idea what's going on.
You'll be lost. Okay.
But like, the season 3 is just like one giant panic attack. So if you're prone to that, maybe don't watch it. But one of the interesting things is Will Guidara is a producer on the show. And a lot of
every season or just this season?
I didn't pay attention to seasons 1 and 2, but he is on season 3. And the fun part is you see some of the concepts that he talks about in the book kind of pop up. as things that have been shown as both an example of good leadership and bad leadership in the restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
And like when you can see it as a bad concept, you see how bad it is.
Yeah.
So it's kind of fun to see a book that you read and you're like, oh yeah, this resonates with me. And then you watch a show about a restaurant and you're like, this feels anxiety inducing and something I don't want to be part of. And it's for the same reasons.
Mm.
So cool thing. Show's good. Highly recommend it.
I have not watched it yet. People keep recommending that show to me, and I haven't watched it yet. And then you told me about the guy who wrote that book was producing, or a producer.
Yeah, a producer, not the producer.
Yeah, that's like me. I produce
Yeah.
stuff.
I produce content as well. I'm just not the producer of content.
I don't have any. Golly, I've had so many podcasts lately. I don't think I have anything new to add, other than I'll still talk about the same one I just did. I'm also someone who really doesn't watch some of my wife's shows, but I'm in the background watching my wife's shows. I don't know if anyone does that here. But I'm like, I don't want to watch it. And then I'm like 2 episodes in, I'm like,
well, have you ever found yourself rage watching them?
no, I don't know about that. No, I don't think so. Usually I'm only watching when she's watching.
Yeah, no. So my wife watches The Real Housewives of whatever city, right? Like all 30 of those cities with the same generic 5 women in them. And like, I'll complain about it. And I'm sitting there on the couch, like I'm hanging out with her because we're just hanging out and she's watching the show. And I'll find myself like, I know more about The Real Housewives of Dubai than I should.
Than you should.
I hate the show, but I'll watch it so that I can complain about the show to my wife.
Yeah, that's probably true. Like, why doesn't Patricia just understand that Kelly knows?
Like, it's just you get drawn into this stupid drama and you're like, I absolutely hate the show.
Yeah.
Like, it's awful.
Yeah, the one I'm doing that with is Killing Eve.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So the first season and a half were great. After that, it was
kind of weird.
It's real bad. Like terrible.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it gets bad real fast.
It's a strange one.
Yeah.
It's I'm there for it, to be honest. But it's different. Yeah. So if anybody's watching who's going to like tune into that, it's like it's like a dark MI6 / serial killer vibe to it,
where they've got kind of are they going to get together or are they
and
not?
Then with a weird romantic twist. So it's just a strange show.
If you do watch in the audience, for the people,
the 14 people that listen to this, my mom
through
included,
the last like 4 minutes, stop the show like 4 minutes into the last episode of season 3 and then forget the 4th season happened.
Oh, all right. Okay. Noted.
So there's
I ain't doing it right, apparently. So, all right. Well,
that's my useful.
That's
tip
our
of the week.
Catalyst catch up. I hope people found it useful. Hope it's something we're doing. Again, you'll probably see it a couple more times this year. We just try to like round up some of the news we're hearing, some of the stuff we're seeing. A couple of places we will be. I think this might air after, but we will be at RBC, Cardinal RBC, Amerisource, and ADCDS TSE. So. Either one of us or both of us.
And in October, we'll be at NCPA.
And of course, we'll be at NCPA. I'm hoping we do one of these before that, but if we don't, we'll be at NCPA. So we'll both be at almost all of those. I'll be at NACDS. You won't be.
I'll be at RBC and ThoughtSpot.
You'll be at both. Yep. I'll be at Cardinal. So come see us. Come by. Come say hi. And we'll see you there. All right.
Cool.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.